All right, you guys, a lot of people have been having trouble, so I just want to walk through some of this writing classes right now and just do some examples with you, okay? So I'm going to start with the writing classes right now. What this is saying here is basically we're just going to set up a class. We're going to set up the instance variables in the constructor. It tells us we have two strings and it gives us the string names. It says it wants the appropriate privacy settings and then create the structure of a constructor that takes in the two parameters that match. Okay, so in other words, we're going to create, and I'm just going to tab over the assignment here. So we're going to create, I'm just going to make this code larger, two instance variables. So instance variables for encapsulation, the good habit is all your instance variables should be private. So no one should have direct access to those variables. So we want both of these strings to be private. Okay, the first one's called rsid, and then we want another private string, and this one's called genotype. Okay, and this is create the structure of a constructor. So a constructor has a type. It's going to be public because we are going to construct it from outside, right? So we want this publicly accessible. We don't give a return type like void or string or something like that because we are building something we are never returning. So we leave that out. That's the way we differentiate between a method and a constructor, and we use the name of the class. So public DNA, that would just be the default constructor. However, it said here, we want to create the constructor that takes in two parameters that match the instance variable. So in other words, we want to take in a string, comma, and a string. So we just need to give them names. So the first string, I'll call underscore rsid. So that way I know it's both the underscore telling me it's not the same, it's a local version, and then the rest of the name telling me it matches this variable. So I just know which is which. The second string I'm going to call underscore geno or genotype, doesn't matter there. Let's go over to run code, test cases, and let's check our code, make sure that matches. So we've got two private variables as the instant variables and then a public constructor. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. All right, so this one, very similar. It's saying we're creating instance variables for an employee class. Now there's three different things. There's the name, so that's going to be a string. Their 4-digit ID number. So this could go either way. Often with 4-digit codes, you might do it as a string. Otherwise, leading zeros disappear. But we'll save it as an integer because I think that's what they want. And then hourly salary, which will have at least 2 decimal places, right? Our, banking numbers have like percents to the many decimal places. But either way, we're going to need a float or a double. We're just always going to use doubles, okay? We'll give them their name, type, etc. And then after defining them, another structure, same constructor, okay? So in here, I'm going to again go to the assignment. It is a private variable, okay? The first one is string name. The second one, again, it's private. We're going to do this one's an int, and we'll call it ID. And the third one, again, is private because every instance variable should be. And then we're going to do double. We'll call it salary. And then we're going to make a constructor. So constructors should be publicly available. There's no return type. We just use the exact name of the class. And then they wanted us to have some inputs that match. So you could set up those instance variables when you instantiate this class. So we're taking a string underscore name, integer underscore ID, and a double underscore salary. Okay, I'm going to go over to, let's go run code. Let's check it. And sure enough, it all worked. Okay, so let's go to the third one here. Okay, so the third one says we've got a circle and a circle tester. So that's like the main that actually runs it. Have been created, but they have a bunch of errors. So the public and privacy settings are all mixed up, both for the variables and the methods. Your job is to go through and fix them. You'll need to make edits in both files, and once we're done, we should have the radius, diameter, and perimeter printed at one circle with a radius 5, double that as diameter 10, and then this. Okay, let's do it. So first, let's set up the circle class, okay? So it's got one radius, but that instance variable should be private. Okay. The constructor needs to be public because we're going to access from outside. So let's say public circle takes in a double, and you notice how they did my radius, which is clearly saying it's talking about the radius, but it's a different name. We set the global one to the local one. Got it. Oh yeah, we need these publicly available. I'm just going to copy public. So these methods get the diameter, get the radius, get the perimeter, get the string. Okay, so all those are publicly available. So we're giving them access points, but the variable direct access to it, that's private. Okay, so this seems to be set up unless inside the methods was messed up, but it seemed to explain that it was just the access. Okay, so over here, we instantiate a circle, so one of these circles, and in the constructor, we send it the number 10. Okay, so in other words, we're setting the radius to 10 to start. Then right after, we say, hey, on circle, let's call, or let's directly set the radius to 5. Well, we don't have direct access. We made it private. So nothing outside of that class has access. So we got a couple ways to do this. We could either call the set radius and pass it a radius, although I don't know why it's taking an integer. Let's take in a double there. Over here, so we could call set radius, and that's a method. So we would, in parentheses, go 5. Now we could do that, or why set the radius to 10 when we make the circle and then right after change it to 5? Let's just right at the beginning instantiate a circle that has a starting radius of 5. Okay, let's go back over, make sure. We send in a 5, that gets saved as the radius, great. Okay, then print out the actual object. So what that does is that uses the built-in toString method that every object comes with. By default, it's nothing fancy, but we can add in any return string value of just how we want to describe the object. So when you go to print the object, you can have any description print. This is a circle with blank and blank and blank information. Okay, so circle with the radius up. And let's go to the assignment. That's exactly the first thing we want, right? So we create one with a radius of 5. It prints, circle with radius 5. And then after we print, the diameter is, and we circle get diameter. So let's look over here. So we got get diameter, which is radius times 2. It is now public. Good, it's returning a value. We go, the perimeter is circle get perimeter. So again, get perimeter returns a double, is publicly accessible, and it returns math.py times, oh, and look at that, it calls the get diameter from inside. So rather than manually doing radius times 2, they just call on this publicly available method inside the same class. I like it, that's elegant. Okay, so let's go over here and let's check our code. Perfect. Okay, so that was just a walkthrough of kind of public and private and the basics of instance variables and constructors.